The grand hall of Harmony Prime Station gleamed under artificial lights that mimicked a dozen different home suns. Representatives from 73 species sat in their designated sections, their forms ranging from the crystalline Vex to the gas-breathing Metharians in their containment suits. At the center of it all, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood alone at the human delegation's platform. She was tired. 3 years of war had carved lines into her face that hadn't been there before. 3 years of watching colony ships burn. 3 years of receiving casualty reports from worlds she'd helped establish. 3 years of trying to find a peaceful solution while her people died. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council," Sarah began, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility crushing down on her shoulders. "Humanity comes before you today with open hands. We seek peace. We have always sought peace." Across the circular chamber, the Zethran delegation sat in their elevated position. High Commander Thraxul's 4 eyes gleamed with something that looked like amusement. His scaled face twisted into what passed for a smile among his kind. "The cattle speak of peace," Thraxul announced, his translator rendering his words in perfect galactic common. "Yet they resist our rightful expansion. They cling to worlds they barely understand how to use." Sarah ignored the insult. She'd heard worse over the past 3 years. "We propose an immediate ceasefire across all contested systems. Humanity will withdraw from the disputed border regions of Sectors 7 and 9. In return, the Zethran hegemony will lift its blockades of New Harmony, Terra Nova, and Exodus Station. Trade routes will be reopened. Both sides will establish a neutral zone." "Unacceptable," Thraxul interrupted, waving one clawed hand dismissively. "Humanity will surrender all military vessels. You will dismantle your defense stations. You will submit to Zethran oversight of all your colonies." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Even the council members who had no love for humanity seemed surprised by the harsh terms. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. She forced herself to breathe slowly. "High Commander, that's not negotiation. That's demanding unconditional surrender." "Yes," Thraxul said simply. "That is exactly what we demand." The council speaker, an ancient Vex whose crystalline form pulsed with soft blue light, raised one geometric appendage. "Perhaps we should discuss more moderate terms." "The Zethran hegemony has support from 47 council members," Thraxul said, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "We do not need to compromise with a species that controls merely 12 systems. Humanity is surrounded. Humanity is outnumbered. Humanity should be grateful we offer them the chance to surrender, rather than face complete annihilation." Sarah looked around the chamber. She saw the truth in the faces and forms of the assembled species. Some looked sympathetic, but wouldn't risk opposing the Zethran bloc. Others appeared indifferent. Humanity was just another young species too weak to matter. And some, she realized with cold certainty, actually enjoyed watching humanity brought low. Humanity had been so careful when they joined galactic civilization. They'd followed every rule. They'd respected every custom. They'd tried so hard to be good neighbors, good citizens of the great galactic community. And now, when they needed that community to stand up for basic fairness, they found themselves alone. "We have casualties mounting daily," Sarah said, letting emotion creep into her voice now. "Children are starving on blockaded worlds. Medical supplies can't get through. The colony on New Harmony has 3 weeks of oxygen left. 3 weeks before 20,000 people start dying. And you call these negotiations?" Thraxul stood, his massive form towering over his delegation's platform. "Your colonies suffer because you refuse to accept reality. The strong take what they need. The weak submit or perish. This is the way of the universe." "That's not civilization," Sarah shot back. "That's barbarism dressed up in fancy words." The High Commander's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Ambassador. Your species is in no position to insult those who hold your fate in their claws." Sarah reached into her coat and pulled out a data tablet. She held it up for all to see. "This contains humanity's final peace proposal. It's fair. It's reasonable. It gives both sides a path forward without more bloodshed. I'm begging this council to consider it." She walked forward, crossing the open space between delegations. It was a breach of protocol, but she didn't care anymore. She stopped at the base of the Zethran platform and held up the tablet. Thraxul looked down at her with those cold, reptilian eyes. For a moment, Sarah thought she saw something like consideration cross his features. Then his expression hardened into contempt. He reached down and took the tablet from her hand. Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Maybe. The High Commander held the tablet between two claws. Then, deliberately, he crushed it. Pieces of shattered technology fell like rain around Sarah's feet. That is what the Zethran hegemony thinks of human peace proposals, Thraxul announced to the chamber. Return to your masters, little ambassador. Tell them they have 72 hours to accept our terms or face the consequences. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Even the species who had supported the Zethrans seemed taken aback by the raw disrespect of the gesture. Sarah stood very still. She looked down at the broken pieces of the tablet, at the representation of months of careful diplomacy reduced to electronic debris. Something cold and hard settled in her chest. She raised her head and looked directly at Thraxul. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but it carried through the suddenly silent chamber. We came to you with peace. We offered you a path that would end this war honorably for everyone. You rejected it. You spat on it. You ground it beneath your feet. She turned slowly, addressing the entire council now. Let the record show that humanity exhausted every diplomatic option. Let the record show that we tried and failed, Thraxul laughed. Because you are weak. Because you are a young species that doesn't understand how this galaxy truly works. Sarah smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. You're right about one thing, High Commander. We are a young species. Young enough that we still remember our history. Young enough that we remember what happens when peaceful people are pushed too far. She walked back toward the human delegation's platform, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. When she reached it, she turned one final time. Humanity has tried to be civilized. We followed your rules, respected your customs, restrained ourselves because we wanted to be good members of this galactic community. We thought if we proved we could be peaceful, you would treat us as equals. She paused, letting her words sink in. We were wrong. The council speaker pulsed with agitation. Ambassador Chen, what are you saying? I'm saying that humanity offers peace first, always. But when peace is rejected, when diplomacy is crushed underfoot, when our people are left to die while the galaxy watches, Sarah's voice grew harder with each word. Then we no longer negotiate as suppliants hoping for your approval. Then humanity chooses the other path. Are you threatening this council? Thraxul demanded, but for the first time Sarah detected uncertainty in his voice. No, High Commander. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply informing you that the restraints are coming off. You wanted to see humanity pushed to its limits. You're about to find out what that really means. She gathered her papers, such as they were, and walked toward the exit. The other human delegates followed her in silence. Behind them, Thraxul's laughter echoed through the chamber. Run back to your little worlds, humans. You have 72 hours. Sarah didn't look back. She'd said everything that needed saying. Now it was up to others to speak for humanity, others who didn't use words. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the command center of Earth's Defense Station 1, watching the holographic displays that showed humanity's 12 systems. Each point of light represented hope and struggle. Each one held millions of human lives that depended on the decisions he would make in the coming hours. A priority message flashed across his personal screen. It was encoded with the highest level of security that humanity possessed. Only 7 people in all of human space had clearance to send such a message. He opened it. 3 words filled his screen. Negotiations have failed. Marcus felt something settle in his gut. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was the cold certainty of a man who had prepared for this moment and hoped it would never come. He activated his command implant and sent out a fleet-wide signal. All vessels, all stations, all military installations implement Protocol Pandora. Authorization Web Alpha 07. This is not a drill. Across human space, the message reached commanders who had been briefed on this possibility. Some had believed it would never be needed. Others had prayed it wouldn't be. All of them understood what it meant. Humanity was done playing by the galaxy's rules. On New Harmony, Captain Lisa Rodriguez received the signal aboard the frigate Defiant. She immediately shut down all external communications. Every ship in the human fleet received similar orders. Within minutes, every human vessel in known space went silent. The effect was immediate and eerie. Zethran listening posts suddenly found themselves staring at nothing but static. The carefully monitored human communications network simply vanished. Trade ships went dark. Colony transmissions ceased. Military channels flatlined. In the Zethran command center on their fortress world of Krathnor, Admiral Velkath stared at his displays in confusion. What's happening? Where did they go? His communications officer checked and rechecked his instruments. Sir, every human signal has disappeared. Ships, stations, colonies, everything. They can't just vanish, Velkath snapped. Find them. Send scout ships to their colonies. I want to know what they're doing. The scouts reported back within hours. Human colonies were still there, still functioning, but they'd gone completely silent. Ships were moving, but they were all heading inward toward humanity's core systems. It looked like a general retreat. Velkath allowed himself a satisfied smile. They're pulling back to make their last stand, consolidating their remaining forces. It's what a desperate dying species does. He sent his report to High Commander Thraxul, who shared it with the Galactic Council. The general consensus was clear. Humanity was finished. They were withdrawing to their homeworld to prepare for inevitable defeat. But behind the veil of silence, something very different was happening. In the asteroid belt of the Sol system, pieces of rock that had appeared to be natural formations suddenly split open. Massive doors camouflaged to look like crater-pocked stone revealed the facilities hidden beneath. These weren't mining operations. They were shipyards. Commander James Park watched as the first of the new vessels emerged into open space. The ship didn't look like the frigates and cruisers humanity had been using. This was something else entirely. Something sleeker, meaner, built not for defense but for pure offense. How many do we have ready? James asked his second-in-command. 47 of the Vengeful-class destroyers, 12 of the Wraith-class carriers, and the 3 Apocalypse dreadnoughts just completed their final tests. James nodded slowly. These ships had been built in secret, constructed behind false asteroid faces, assembled by workers who had been told they were building mining equipment. The Galactic Council had regulations against building warships over a certain size. Humanity had followed those regulations with their public shipyards while quietly building something much more dangerous in hidden facilities. On Mars, in underground bunkers that were officially listed as terraforming research centers, Dr. Sarah Kim ran final diagnostics on weapon systems that had been theoretical just 3 years ago. The Kasaba directional pulse warheads are ready, she reported to her oversight committee. All safety protocols have been removed as per Protocol Pandora. One of the committee members, a man who had spent 20 years in weapons research, looked uncomfortable. Dr. Kim, when we designed these, we agreed they were too dangerous to field. The Council would ban us from all trade if they knew we had directed nuclear weapons. Sarah met his eyes without blinking. The Council just watched the Zethrans demand our surrender and laughed. Do you still care what they think? The silence that followed was her answer. Across human space, similar scenes played out. Research facilities that had been working on theoretical projects suddenly shifted to full production. Technologies that humanity had shelved as too controversial, too dangerous, or too likely to upset their galactic neighbors. All of them were dusted off and put into motion. The fold space drive that could open jump points inside a system rather than at its edge. The Council had called it reality-threatening and asked humanity not to pursue it. Humanity had publicly agreed while privately perfecting it. The neural combat implants that turned soldiers into something faster and more efficient than normal humans. The Council had called it disturbing and against the spirit of civilized warfare. Humanity had continued, research in secret. The hunter-killer AI drones that learned from each engagement and adapted their tactics. The Council had banned military AI outright. Humanity had developed it anyway. Admiral Webb walked through the command center, watching his people work with quiet efficiency. There was no panic, no fear, just professionals doing what they'd trained for. Admiral, we have confirmation from all fleet groups, his communications officer reported. All ships have reached rally points. All hidden facilities are operational. All experimental weapons are showing green status. And civilian evacuations? Complete, sir. All non-essential personnel have been moved to hardened shelters. Food and medical supplies have been distributed according to siege protocols. Marcus nodded. He pulled up a tactical display of known Zethran positions. There were so many of them. The hegemony controlled 300 systems to humanity's 12. They had numbers that should make this a foregone conclusion. Should. Send the final confirmation to Ambassador Chen, Marcus ordered. Tell her we're ready. Tell her that if they wanted humanity restrained and civilized, they should have accepted her peace terms. They chose this. The message was sent through quantum-encrypted channels that the Zethrans couldn't intercept. Sarah Chen, back on Earth now, received it in her secure office. She read it twice, then authorized the final step. All units, her message read, "You are weapons-free. Show them what humanity becomes when we stop holding back. Show them why they should have chosen peace." In deep space, Captain Rodriguez received her orders aboard the Defiant. She looked at her crew, men and women who had spent 3 years fighting a defensive war, watching friends die, retreating from system after system. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's intercom. "For 3 years, we've followed rules of engagement designed to make us acceptable to the galactic community. We've limited our weapons, restrained our tactics, fought with one hand tied behind our backs because we wanted to prove we deserved a seat at their table." She paused, letting her crew absorb that. "As of now, those restrictions are lifted. We're going to show the Zethrans and everyone else why humanity tried so hard to stay peaceful. We're going to show them what we're really capable of when we stop being nice and start being efficient." A cheer went up across the ship. It wasn't a sound of joy. It was something darker, harder. It was the sound of hunters who had been prey for too long. The 72-hour deadline the Zethrans had given humanity was counting down. They expected surrender or a futile last stand. They were about to get something very different. In the depths of human space, behind the wall of silence, the restraints came off. The weapons powered up. The ships moved into position. Humanity had offered peace. Peace had been rejected. Now the galaxy would learn what came next. The Zethran Second Fleet assembled at the edge of the New Harmony system, with the confidence of predators approaching wounded prey. Admiral Velkath stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominator, surveying the tactical display with satisfaction. 300 vessels, his tactical officer reported, against maybe 50 human ships if our intelligence is correct. Velkath nodded. The humans had retreated to their colony world after the failed negotiations. Standard defensive behavior for a losing force. He would offer them one more chance to surrender. Then he would take the planet and secure the hegemony's expansion into this sector. "Take us in," he ordered. Standard formation. "Let's not waste time on this." The fleet moved forward, crossing into the system at the designated jump point. Velkath watched his sensors sweep the area, looking for the expected defensive positions around the colony world. The sensors showed nothing. "Where are they?" Velkath demanded. "The humans should have ships defending their colony." His sensor officer checked and rechecked his equipment. "Sir, I'm not picking up any vessels in standard defensive positions." "Wait, I'm getting something strange. Multiple contacts appearing throughout the system. They're not coming from the jump points." "What do you mean, not from the jump points? How else would they?" The sentence died in Velkath's throat as his display lit up with hostile contacts. Human ships were appearing everywhere, near planets, emerging from behind moons, simply materializing in empty space. They weren't using the standard faster-than-light entry points that all civilized species used. "How are they doing that?" someone whispered. Captain Rodriguez smiled grimly from the bridge of the Defiant as her ship completed its fold space jump. They had emerged less than 1,000 kilometers from the Zethran flagship, a distance that should have been impossible to achieve with standard jump technology. "All weapons, fire at will," she ordered calmly. The Kasaba warheads launched from their tubes. These weren't the nuclear missiles that the Zethrans expected. These were directed energy weapons that used nuclear detonations to create focused beams of plasma and radiation. The energy that would normally spread in all directions was instead channeled like a massive shotgun blast. The first warhead detonated just 50 meters from a Zethran cruiser. The directed plasma beam punched through the ship's shields as if they weren't there, then carved through the hull like a torch through paper. The cruiser broke apart in seconds. Across the battlefield, dozens of Zethran ships found themselves under attack from impossible angles. Human vessels appeared behind them, beside them, sometimes in the middle of their formations. The Zethrans tried to respond, but their tactics were built for conventional warfare. This wasn't conventional warfare anymore. Commander James Park watched from the bridge of the destroyer Retribution as his hunter-killer drones deployed. They looked like simple missiles at first, but each one contained an artificial intelligence sophisticated enough to learn and adapt in real time. The first wave of drones attacked in predictable patterns. The Zethran point defense systems shot down 70% of them, but the remaining 30% transmitted their data back to the second wave. The second wave adjusted, coming in at different angles using different speeds. The Zethran defenses caught only 50% of those. The third wave was even better. The fourth wave was devastating. They're learning. The Zethran tactical officer aboard the Dominator reported with horror in his voice. The drones are learning from each attack and getting better. Admiral Velkath watched his fleet being torn apart. All ships fall back to defensive formation Delta. Focus fire on. A Kasaba warhead detonated near enough to the Dominator to overwhelm its shields. The ship shook violently and half the bridge systems went dark. Shields at 30%, someone shouted. Multiple hull breaches. Engineering reports main power dropping. Velkath couldn't believe what he was seeing. His fleet had outnumbered the humans 6-1. They should have had every advantage. But the humans were fighting with weapons and tactics that seemed to break every rule of civilized warfare. A human Wraith-class carrier appeared near a cluster of Zethran frigates. Instead of firing conventional weapons, it deployed swarms of smaller attack craft. These weren't piloted by living beings, they were completely automated, coordinating with each other in ways that suggested a hive intelligence. The swarms overwhelmed the frigate's defenses through pure numbers and coordination. Within minutes, 5 Zethran ships were disabled or destroyed. On Earth, Admiral Webb monitored the battle through real-time updates. The fold space communication system let him track everything despite being light years away. Second Fleet reports 70% of Zethran vessels destroyed or disabled, his communications officer reported. Estimated time to complete system control, 14 minutes. Webb nodded slowly. What are our casualties? 3 ships damaged, 1 destroyed. Total casualties estimated at 200 personnel. 200 dead versus the thousands of Zethrans being killed in the battle. Webb felt a momentary pang of regret. Not for the enemy, but for what humanity had become. They had tried so hard to be peaceful, and when forced to fight, they were terrifyingly efficient at it. But he pushed the regret aside. The Zethrans had made their choice. At the same moment, in 5 other Zethran systems, similar scenes played out. Human strike forces appeared without warning, using their fold space technology to bypass early warning systems. They struck at military installations, shipyards, and command centers with surgical precision. The Zethran garrison at HFY watched in horror as human ships materialized inside their defensive perimeter. The base commander sent a desperate message. "This is HFY garrison to Hegemony Command. We are under attack! The humans are using weapons we've never seen before. They're appearing inside our defenses. Request immediate." The transmission cut off as a Kasaba warhead struck the command center. On Krathnor, the Hegemony's fortress world, High Commander Thraxul received the flood of distress calls with growing disbelief. Second Fleet destroyed? HFY fallen? Multiple systems under attack? His communications officer looked pale. "Sir, we're receiving reports from all along our border with human space. They're hitting us everywhere at once. And they're not just raiding, they're systematically destroying every military installation in each system." Thraxul felt something cold creep into his chest. Fear. He had never felt fear of the humans before. What about their communications? Can we intercept their signals, learn their plans? No, sir. They're using some kind of quantum encrypted system we can't crack, and they're deploying cyber warfare programs that are locking us out of our own networks. Several of our garrison commanders can't even communicate with their own ships. The High Commander stared at the tactical display showing red icons spreading across Zethran space like a disease. Each red icon represented a human attack, a Zethran defeat. How many ships have we lost? The silence that followed was answer enough. Back at New Harmony, Admiral Velkath made the hardest decision of his career. His flagship was crippled. 2/3 of his fleet was destroyed, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. "All remaining vessels, retreat," he ordered. "Get what's left of this fleet out of here." The surviving Zethran ships turned and fled toward the jump point. The human vessels didn't pursue. They had achieved their objective. Captain Rodriguez watched the Zethran retreat on her screens. "Should we pursue, Captain?" She shook her head. "No, let them run. Let them report what they saw here. Let them tell everyone what happens when you force humanity to take the gloves off." Her crew nodded in understanding. This battle wasn't just about winning. It was about sending a message. Across the 6 systems where humanity struck that day, the pattern repeated. Overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. Advanced technology used without restraint. tactics that prioritized efficiency over honor or tradition. The Zethran military had spent 3 years believing they were fighting humans. Now they realized they had been fighting humans who were holding back. They had been fighting an enemy who was trying not to be too scary, too efficient, too good at killing. Those restraints were gone now. By the time the 72-hour deadline expired, 6 major Zethran military installations had been reduced to rubble. 2 entire fleets had been destroyed, and the word was spreading through galactic channels despite human, cyber warfare efforts to contain it. Humanity had been holding back, and now they weren't anymore. In the Galactic Council chambers on Harmony Prime, emergency sessions were being convened. Representatives who had laughed at humanity's peace proposals just days ago were now watching footage of the battles with pale faces and frightened eyes. They're using banned technology, someone protested. Weakly, they're fighting without honor, another added. But everyone in that chamber knew the truth. Humanity had followed the rules, and the rules had failed them. They had tried peace, and peace had been rejected. Now the galaxy was seeing what came next, and it was terrifying. The footage spread through galactic networks despite all attempts to contain it. Every species with access to interstellar communication saw what humanity had done to the Zethran Second Fleet. The images were difficult to watch. On Vex Prime, the crystalline beings who had witnessed the failed negotiations gathered to view the battle recordings. Their leader, Elder Prism, pulsed with colors that indicated deep concern. "This is not the humanity we thought we knew," Prism observed. "These tactics, these weapons, they fought nothing like this before." Another Vex, younger and more aggressive in temperament, flickered with red undertones. "They violated the weapons treaties. They used AI in combat. They employed directed nuclear weapons. These are all banned technologies." "Banned by a council that refused to help them," Prism replied quietly. "Perhaps we should have considered what happens when we force a peaceful species to fight for survival without support." Across the galaxy, similar conversations occurred in 1,000 different languages and forms of communication. The species that had watched humanity struggle with indifference now watched their military efficiency with growing alarm. The Matharian Assembly reviewed footage of the hunter-killer, drones learning and adapting in real time. Their defense minister spoke through his translation device, his gas form swirling with agitation inside its containment suit. "If they can make their machines learn this fast, what else are they capable of? What other weapons have they been hiding?" The Matharian High Chancellor tried to project calm, but his form betrayed his own worry. "We supported the Zethran position in the Council. We voted against human proposals. If they turn their attention to us, then we negotiate," the Chancellor said firmly. "Immediately. Before they decide we're also a threat." In the Galactic Council chambers, an emergency session convened just 48 hours after humanity's offensive began. The chamber that had been filled with smug confidence during the peace negotiations now buzzed with nervous energy. High Commander Thraxul stood before the council, and he looked nothing like the confident warrior who had crushed humanity's peace tablet. His scales were dull, his movements jerky with stress. "The hegemony formally requests council intervention," he announced. "The humans are employing weapons and tactics that violate every civilized norm of warfare. They must be stopped before they threaten all of us." Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the human delegation's platform. She had not been invited to this session, but she had come anyway. The guards at the doors hadn't tried to stop her. "The humans are not here to speak in their defense," Thraxul continued. "They ignore council authority entirely now." "They are—" "I'm here," Sarah interrupted, her voice cutting through the chamber. All eyes turned to her. She looked different than she had during the failed negotiations. Harder. More dangerous somehow, despite being physically unchanged. The council speaker's crystalline form pulsed with uncertain colors. "Ambassador Chen, this is a closed session discussing us," Sarah finished. "Then we should have a voice." She walked to the center of the chamber, ignoring protocol entirely. "You want to talk about what humanity is doing? Then let's talk about it honestly." Thraxul's eyes narrowed. "You are using banned weapons, fighting without honor. Destroying—" "We are winning," Sarah said simply. "That's what bothers you. Not our tactics. Not our weapons. The fact that we're winning." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Several species shifted uncomfortably. "For 3 years we fought the way you wanted us to fight," Sarah continued. "We followed your rules of engagement. We used only approved weapons. We limited our tactics to what you considered civilized, and we watched our people die because of it." She turned slowly, making eye contact with delegates from a dozen different species. "We came to you for help. We came with fair peace proposals. We begged you to intervene, and you laughed. You sat in your comfortable seats and you watched us suffer because we were weak, and in this galaxy, the weak don't matter. That is not—" Someone began to protest. "It is exactly what happened." Sarah's shout echoed through the chamber. The delegates fell silent, shocked by the raw emotion in her voice. "You want to know why we're using the weapons we are? Because you forced us to. You want to know why we're fighting without your idea of honor? Because honor doesn't protect our children. Efficiency does." She pulled up a holographic display showing footage from the recent battles. The Zethran ships being torn apart. The systematic destruction of military installations. The cold mechanical precision of human warfare. "This is what you created," Sarah said quietly. "You pushed a peaceful species into a corner and gave us no choice but to become what we needed to be to survive. You wanted to see humanity desperate? This is what we look like when we're desperate." Thraxul found his voice again. "You're monsters. You fight like machines, not like living beings. There is no honor in—" "You don't get to lecture us about honor," Sarah snapped. "You crushed our peace treaty under your foot. You blockaded our colonies and let civilians starve. You demanded our complete surrender and occupation. Where was your honor then?" The council chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. Several delegates who had supported the Zethran position now looked anywhere but at the human ambassador. "The humans are correct about one thing," Elder Prism said, his crystalline form pulsing with reluctant agreement. "We failed to act when we could have negotiated a fair peace. We allowed the situation to escalate because we did not believe humanity could truly threaten the hegemony." "And now?" Sarah asked. "Now do you believe we can threaten them?" No one answered, but the answer was written on every face and form in the chamber. Sarah pulled up more footage. This time it showed human soldiers in combat. They moved with unnatural speed and precision, their neural implants coordinating their actions perfectly. They employed weapons that adapted to enemy tactics. They fought with a cold efficiency that was more terrifying than any rage. "You want to know what scares you?" Sarah asked the assembled council. "It's not just that we're winning, it's that we're so good at it. You pushed us to war thinking we would be easy to defeat. Now you're realizing that humanity tried very, very hard to stay peaceful because we knew what would happen if we didn't." She paused, letting that sink in. "We spent our entire history fighting each other. Thousands of years of warfare, of developing better ways to kill, of perfecting the art of destruction. When we reached for the stars, we thought we'd left that behind. We wanted to be better. We wanted to be the peaceful species that earned respect through cooperation and diplomacy. And we rejected that," Elder Prism said softly. Sarah nodded. "You did? You and everyone else who sat silent while the Zethrans demanded our surrender. So now you get to see what humanity looks like when we stop trying to be acceptable, when we stop holding back, when we remember that we're really, really good at war." Thraxul tried to regain some authority. "The council must act. We must enforce the weapons treaties. You must what?" Sarah challenged. "Send a fleet to stop us? We've destroyed 2 Zethran fleets already. How many ships do you want to lose trying to enforce treaties we never signed?" The council speaker pulsed with agitation. "Are you saying humanity no longer recognizes council authority?" Sarah considered that carefully. "We recognize that the council failed us when we needed them. We recognize that when we followed your rules, you let us die. So now we're following our own rules." She smiled without warmth. "But we're not unreasonable. If the council wants to negotiate with us now, we're willing to listen. Of course, our terms will be different than they were before. You can't dictate terms to the entire galactic community," someone protested, "can't we?" Sarah pulled up a tactical display showing human fleet positions. "We've been holding back for 3 years. These past 48 hours? This is us without restraints. Imagine what we can do with more time, more resources, more desperation." She let them think about that. Let them imagine human hunter-killer drones learning and adapting across 100 battlefields. Let them imagine fold space attacks that could appear anywhere without warning. Let them imagine AI-coordinated fleets that fought with inhuman precision. "The Metharian Assembly wishes to speak," the Metharian Chancellor said quickly. "We believe that perhaps accommodations can be reached. If humanity would agree to discuss, we'll discuss terms after the Zethran hegemony surrenders, Sarah said flatly. Unconditional surrender, complete disarmament, reparations for damages, and permanent human representation on this council with full veto power. The chamber erupted in protests. Impossible. Outrageous. The hegemony will never agree. Sarah waited for the noise to die down. Then we continue what we started. We continue until the hegemony is reduced to its homeworld. We continue until every species in this galaxy understands that negotiating with humanity is always better than fighting us. She turned to Thraxul directly. You wanted to see us desperate, High Commander. You wanted to break us. Congratulations, you succeeded. But you forgot something important. Cornered animals are the most dangerous kind. Thraxul said nothing. For the first time since Sarah had known him, the Zethran commander looked genuinely afraid. Sarah walked back toward the exit, then paused. The council has 72 hours to broker a Zethran surrender. The Zethran High Council met in their fortress on Krathnor for the first time in 300 years, with genuine fear in the room. The holographic displays surrounding them showed system after system falling to human attacks. Not occupied, destroyed. Every military installation, every shipyard, every depot reduced to debris. We have lost 40% of our fleet strength, the fleet admiral reported. His voice was hollow. At this rate, we will have no military capacity within 6 weeks. High Commander Thraxul stared at the displays, watching red icons spread across what had been secure hegemony space. How can 12 systems do this to us? We control 300. Because they're not fighting to control territory, another commander explained. They're fighting to destroy our ability to fight back, and they're doing it with a precision we cannot match. The Minister of Intelligence added her report. Our cybersecurity has been completely compromised. The human AI warfare programs are more sophisticated than anything we've encountered. They're in our communications, our logistics networks, even our civilian infrastructure. We can't coordinate our remaining fleets effectively. Thraxul felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. He had done this. He had rejected the peace terms. He had crushed the human ambassador's tablet under his foot while the galaxy watched. He had believed humanity was weak. He had been catastrophically wrong. What are our options? He asked quietly. The silence that followed was answer enough. Finally, the fleet admiral spoke. We surrender. Now. Before they escalate further. Before they decide to target our industrial worlds. Before... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Before they decide that the Zethran hegemony is too dangerous to leave intact. They would not dare, someone began. They have dared everything, Thraxul roared, his control finally breaking. They have used weapons we thought banned. They have employed tactics we thought impossible. They have fought a war that should not be winnable, and they are winning. What makes you think they won't dare to finish what they've started? The room fell silent again. The Minister of Diplomacy, an older Zethran who had served through 4 previous conflicts, spoke for the first time. The High Commander is correct. We must accept reality. Humanity offered us generous peace terms. We rejected them. Now we must accept whatever terms they offer us. Unconditional surrender? Thraxul asked bitterly. That's what they demanded at the council session. Then that is what we give them, the minister replied. Pride is expensive. We cannot afford it anymore. 3 days later, the message went out through official channels. The Zethran hegemony requested immediate ceasefire and offered unconditional surrender. The message was broadcast not just to humanity but to the entire galactic community. Admiral Marcus Webb received the message aboard Defense Station 1. He read it twice, then forwarded it to Ambassador Chen and the Human Government Council. Should we accept? His second-in-command asked. Marcus considered the question carefully. Send a response. Ceasefire accepted, but our fleets maintain their positions. If this is a trick to buy them time, they'll regret it. But it wasn't a trick. Within hours, Zethran military vessels began withdrawing from all contested systems. Their commanders broadcast surrender signals. Their installations lowered their shields. Yet humanity didn't stop. The human fleets continued their advance. They didn't attack surrendering forces, but they moved deeper into Zethran territory with methodical precision. System after system fell under human control, not through battle but through occupation. In the Galactic Council chambers, the assembled species watched this continuation with growing alarm. Elder Prism spoke what many were thinking. The Zethrans have surrendered. Why do the humans continue? Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before them, her expression unreadable. The Zethrans surrendered once they realized they couldn't win. That's not the same as peace. What more do you want? Thraxul demanded. He had been summoned to the council to witness this. We have surrendered. We have ordered our fleets to stand down. What more? You surrendered because you were losing, Sarah interrupted. Not because you understood you were wrong. Not because you learned anything. You would start another war the moment you rebuilt your strength. So you will occupy us forever? No, Sarah said. We will reduce your military capacity to the point where you can never threaten anyone again. Then we will maintain oversight until we're satisfied you've learned your lesson. The council speaker pulsed with distress. You cannot remake an entire civilization by force. We're not remaking anything, Sarah replied. We're teaching. We're teaching the hegemony and everyone else in this galaxy a very important lesson. Humanity offers peace first. We offer diplomacy, negotiation, and fair compromise. But if you force us to fight, we will be so devastating at it that you will beg us to stop. She pulled up a display showing human fleet positions. They had advanced to within 3 systems of Krathnor itself, the hegemony's homeworld. By the end of this week, the Zethran hegemony will consist of its home system and nothing else. Every other system they control will be liberated or placed under neutral administration. Every shipyard, every military academy, every weapons facility will be dismantled. And it will stay that way until we're satisfied they understand peace is better than war. You're destroying an entire interstellar civilization, someone protested. We're removing their ability to destroy others, Sarah corrected. Their civilians will be fine. Their worlds will be intact, but their military will be reduced to a home defense force appropriate for a single system. That's what happens when you force humanity to war. Thraxul's scales had lost all their color. And the rest of the galaxy? You will hold this threat over all of us? Sarah turned to face the full council. Let me be very clear about humanity's position. We came to the stars hoping to join a community of civilized species. We followed your rules. We respected your customs. We tried to earn our place through cooperation. She paused, making sure every delegate was listening. You rejected that. You let the strong prey on the weak. You let us suffer because we weren't powerful enough to matter. So we stopped trying to be acceptable and started being effective. The human ambassador's voice grew harder. From this day forward, humanity operates under new principles. We will always offer peace first. We will always try to negotiate fairly. We will be the first ones to extend the hand of friendship. But if that hand is slapped away, if our peace is rejected, if anyone decides to test us, she gestured to the displays showing Zethran systems falling one after another. This is what happens. We will be so good at war, so efficient at destruction, so thorough in our response that every species in this galaxy will understand. Negotiating with humanity is always the better choice. Elder Prism pulsed with troubled colors. You are making yourself into the galaxy's policeman, the arbiter of what is acceptable. No, Sarah corrected. We're making ourselves into the galaxy's reminder. We're the species that will show everyone what happens when civilization fails, when diplomacy is rejected, when the strong believe they can do whatever they want. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You wanted us to learn our place in this galaxy. We have. Our place is being the ones you negotiate with because the alternative is too terrible to contemplate. The Metherian Chancellor spoke up carefully. And if the Council objects to these terms, if we refuse to recognize human authority? Then we continue what we started, Sarah said simply. We don't need your recognition. We need your understanding. Understand that humanity tried the peaceful path and you closed it. Understand that what comes next is entirely preventable. Just negotiate fairly with us." Over the following weeks, human fleets completed their occupation of Zethran space. True to their word, they didn't harm civilians. They didn't destroy cultural sites or civilian infrastructure. But every military installation, every shipyard, every weapons facility was systematically dismantled. The Zethran hegemony that had controlled 300 systems was reduced to its homeworld. The transition was overseen by human administrators who were firm but not cruel. Food shipments were maintained. Medical care continued. But the military might of the hegemony was broken so thoroughly it would take generations to rebuild, if humanity ever allowed it. 3 months after the peace negotiations had failed, humanity returned to the Galactic Council with their terms. Not just for the Zethrans, but for everyone. Ambassador Chen stood before the council with Admiral Webb at her side. Behind them, projected on massive screens, were images of the systematic dismantling of Zethran military power. "The Zethran hegemony will pay reparations for damages to human colonies," Sarah announced. "They will return all seized human assets and territory. Their military will be limited to a home defense force under permanent human inspection." "And in return?" the council speaker asked. "In return, we stop. We don't occupy their homeworld. We don't dismantle their civilian government. We allow them to exist, neutered, but intact." Sarah turned to address the full council. "Additionally, humanity claims a permanent seat on the Galactic Security Council with full veto power. Our military forces will maintain freedom of movement throughout council space to ensure no other species decides to prey on the weak." The protests were immediate and loud, but Sarah spoke over them.